Town of Arundecoit Planning Board. Would everyone please rise for the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be aware of the fire exit, which is the door that you came in. In the event of an emergency, please move in a common orderly fashion down the stairs and do not use the elevator. Meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record in minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. Give your name and address when you address the board. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. There's extra copies over there by the door. The applicant and the representative shall come to the podium after the case is called, identify themselves and give their address and then present their case. The planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If this case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address and direct any questions to the board. Once all public input is completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input is completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to public input and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed after that point. Michelle, would you please call the first case?
Sure. First item on the agenda is case number ZB 1502-1. Upon the matter of request by Marathon Engineering, acting as agent for Lee Foster, for a steep slope environmental overlay district permit to demolish and reconstruct an 8-foot-high retaining wall on premises 625 Seneca Road in an R2 residential district.
Okay, for this application, you're going to give us a short presentation. We've already heard a presentation about it. The Conservation Board and the town engineers already weighed in on this, and there's been some amendments to your thing. After we do all that and have public input and everything, then we're going to go through SECRA and then render a decision probably tonight. If you'd like, there's a board over there. You can open the board up and stick it right in there. There's in that wooden cabinet there. Or Nick, you can go over there and be Vanner if you want. No,
Stay up there, Terry.
My name is Dave Moon. I'm from Marathon Engineering. I'm here representing Lee Foster. The property is at 625 Seneca Road. It's about 0.3 miles southeast of Seabreeze and Seneca Road. The zoning is residential 2 and an EPOD overlay steep slope district. Property size is 1.56 acres. The project size is less than 1/10 of an acre. We are proposing to demolish 2 wooden retaining walls that were constructed in 1983, so they're nearing the end of their useful life. We're going to replace them with dolomite boulder retaining wall with crushed stone and some drainage. The length will be about 50 feet. The wall will be 8 feet max height from the finished grade. We will be preserving 2 trees, a maple and an oak, fairly large size, to the north of the wall. And let me talk about the drainage of the site for a minute. Currently, everything slopes to the south. Sheet flows over the existing wooden retaining walls and over the driveway and then on down to Arundecoit Bay. Our proposed conditions include a swale at the top of the wall, which will increase the travel time of the water, and there will be some drains as well at the top, which we added after talking to the engineer to prevent the water from going directly down that steep slope. It will drain in front of the driveway, not onto Seneca Road, because Seneca Road slopes back towards the driveway, and then on south over the hill. We have submitted plans to SHPO and are awaiting a response from them. We plan to add some language to the plans that if any artifacts are encountered, that they go through the proper channels to make sure that they're protected. At the request of the town, we will be providing a jute mesh netting detail for the installation of that erosion control device, and we will be shortening the seeding time to 14 days. The construction timeline, we will hope to begin construction when the weather breaks sometime in March, possibly, hopefully.
I'm sorry, was that out loud?
And we're currently investigating utilities. RG&E will stake out their gas service prior to the construction, and we're working with the Seabreeze Water District to determine the location of that service. Are there any questions?
You mentioned that you're pending SWIP approval, correct? SHPA? Who does SHPA?
SHPO is a State Historic Preservation Office.
State Historic, okay, I'm sorry.
Yep,
don't
they'll
know
be
all that.
investigating to see if there are any
Okay.
archaeological sensitivities.
You don't need SWIP for this? Okay. All right, so let's start. Anyone from the, Mary, you have any questions about this?
No.
Michael?
No, I like the changes that you made that we talked about at the workshop. That'll move the project this, I'm okay, Jim.
All right, thank you. Rich?
You're replacing an existing wall, so there's nothing anticipated with SHPA by virtue of that fact, correct?
Correct.
And Ray?
I think it's good, and I commend you for coming out in 3-degree weather.
Thank you.
Okay, and as I said, the town engineer weighed in on this as well as the conservation board. So
Let me tell him to put that down.
you can put that down now, Lee.
All right, his arm was quivering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lee.
I would like to, I would like to just add that it was very convenient for me personally that, you know, the town engineer had some questions. You outlined the questions or restated them and then gave your answer. I thought that was very helpful to us in being able to be sure that their questions were answered adequately.
Okay. Bernie, did you have any questions regarding the,
Has anything changed besides what we received in the mail in the workshop?
no.
Okay, I'm fine.
I'd like to open it up to public input. If anyone has any comments or questions, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. Charlie Veluska, 345 Birch Hills Drive. I'm a member of the Town Conservation Board, and we did make some comments, and I want to compliment the Marathon for addressing those, I think, to our satisfaction. I guess the only thing I would, you may want to consider adding some crown vetch to the seed mix, potentially. I was down there this afternoon and took a look at this site. I'm not sure if everybody's had a chance to do that. This is a very, very steep slope. I mean, this wall is holding back an extremely steep slope, and I'm not clear as to when I look at the construction sequence, whether or not, and I'm to address it to the board, whether or not the existing wooden wall is to be removed first, and then the new stone wall, or will the stone wall be put up and then the wooden wall be taken down afterwards? It's not clear to me as to that sequence, because if you go down there, I mean, it's really steep, and I'm not an engineer, but I just wonder if you would take that wooden wall down, that slope is in trouble, I think. You might want to do it when it's still frozen. So that's a question that I had. Also, I would recommend, and for your consideration, that the third bullet under the geotechnical report has a recommended installation method as to how much of the slope would actually be exposed at any one time. May want to consider moving that up to be a requirement rather than just a recommendation. I think it's a good idea, that's why but we might just want to put a little more, sort of teeth behind that. Other than that, I think some of the other improvements are really great around putting the swale in and the drainage and that type of stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this application? Seeing none, public input is closed. Would you like to answer anything you want to add regarding Conservation Board's?
Yeah, sure. So as far as the seed mix, we can definitely add some crown vetch into that. To speak to the point of the wall installation, the geotech report really outlines a good method, I think, for installing the wall, part of which I believe we have also on the geotech notes, which is that the wall should be constructed from the road back. So as they're demolishing the existing retaining wall, they should work from the road back to the house because that is the less steep part. So once they get the proposed wall in place, it'll help stabilize it as they're building back to the house.
Any other questions by the board? Okay, I'd like to walk through the seeker before, and then get a motion and a second to approve it, if that's the way we want to go. This is an unlisted action. So if you look at the last page of the packet from tonight, this one right here, this has the last page has the short environmental assessment form. So I'm going to go through the 11 questions, and the proposed action will create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations, and that's a no. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? That's a no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? That's a no. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristic that caused the establishment of a critical environmental criteria? And I think you're actually trying to fix that, so that's a no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic? No. No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities? And the answer to both those is no. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, aesthetic resources? The answer here is no, but the SPHA is going to do an assessment, so we'll put pending the assessment of the SPHA as one of the conditions. Will the proposed action result in adverse change to natural resources? Again, trying to prevent that, so that's a no. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? And that's also something that you're trying to prevent, so that's no. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resource or human health? And that should be a no as well. Does anybody disagree with any of those?
No.
Okay. So, with that, is there a,
Here, take a look at this. I don't want the wrong one printed.
this is for a different application.
Yeah, I saw that
Yes.
too.
Oh, okay.
It's
For the next one.
donuts. Yeah.
It was stuck in the back, so it was a
Yeah,
little confusing.
sorry about that.
Listen.
Okay. Okay, so this is an unlisted action, and we propose a negative declaration. Does anybody want to make the motion for that?
I would make that motion, Mr. Chairman, regarding number 8, pending SWIP approval.
Well, we're just doing secret at this point.
Right, so the proper way to do it is the negative declaration should be clean, but you can condition the actual approval on receipt of.
those comments.
I would make that move.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. On the main motion, do I have a motion for the main item?
I'll make a motion for approval upon the matter of the request by Marathon Engineering acting as agent for Lee Foster for a steep slope environmental overlay district EPOD permit to demolish and reconstruct an 8-foot high retaining wall on premises 625 Seneca Road in an R2 residential district, subject to approval by SHPA.
Second?
Second.
Subject to approval by, is it SHPA? SHPO.
Yes, SHPA.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Nice
Good
job
luck
with
to you.
this package, too. You did a nice job with it. Michelle, can we have the next item, please?
Next item on the agenda is case number PB 1502-2. Upon the matter of request by Romeo Land LTD for preliminary final site plan approval to demolish existing building and construct a new 1,572 square foot Dunkin' Donuts with drive-through and related parking, signage, landscaping, and other site-related improvements on premises 1220 East Ridge Road, Valvoline Instant Oil Change in a C commercial district.
Okay, so for this item, we're waiting for Monroe County DOT to render opinion regarding the traffic study that was given to them by the applicant. So as a result because we don't have that information tonight, we can't make seeker, and without seeker, we can't vote on it. So the plan is tonight is to have the applicant go through his plan. We're going to open public input, and we're going to leave it open until probably the next meeting when we should have the information from the Monroe County DOT. But we'll go through the board will ask questions as well. So, Mr. Romeo, why don't you start?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Romeo. I'm the owner of Romeo Land Limited. I'm the applicant. We have the property at 1220 East Ridge Road under contract to purchase, which is at the corner of northwest corner of Portland Avenue. Our intention is to demolish all the existing building and site improvements and construct a new building for Dunkin' Donuts with interior seating and a drive-through window. We spent quite a bit of time with Dunkin' Donuts working on this site, trying to get a workable site plan together. As you can see from the application and from our previous workshop session, this is a very small site. It's a pre-existing site, and because of that, we need a number of variances. We need a depth variance. Oh, by the way, this is in a C commercial zoning district. So we need a depth variance, we need an area variance, we need a rear yard variance, a front yard variance, an impervious area variance, and a parking variance. Sounds like a lot of variances. We were supposed to be at the zoning board meeting earlier this month, but it was postponed due to weather. The depth variance is required 200 feet of depth. The property is only 116 feet. We assume at some point in time somebody else came in for a variance, but we've been unable to find that variance. So as part of our plan here, we're gonna clean that up. And the area of the lot is approximately 12,000 feet, and we need 20,000 feet to meet code. So we can't do anything about that. The rear yard, there's a 60-foot required variance, and we're going to be getting our building to be set back at about 38 feet 3 inches. The front yard is required a 60-foot variance, and we'll be proposing a 21-foot setback. And our impervious area is required 80%, and we're proposing 82.4%. Our parking required for our layout requires 17, and we'll be proposing 12 parking spaces. Our building is 1,572 square feet, single-story, slab-on-grade construction, be a wood-frame building with siding, like a James Hardy type siding, cement siding. It'll all be painted according to this color scheme that we have. There'll be 16 seats on the interior of the building. There'll be a drive-through. When we were at the workshop last week or 2 weeks ago, there was 3 issues that we talked about at that. You touched on the first one a little bit, and I'll come back to it. It was traffic. I'll give you an update on what's going on with DOT. We talked about landscaping quite a bit. We submitted a revised landscaping plan today. I spent a little bit of time with some landscapers and with some nurseries trying to figure out what was salt tolerant. And there are some plants that are salt tolerant, but not really. They don't hold up well along the street. So we removed all, and we talked about this at the workshop, we removed all the plantings along Portland Avenue and most of them along Ridge Road, replaced them all with grass, beefed up a little bit of the landscaping closer to the building. We think that'll work pretty well. It's interesting, we've kind of opened up a hornet's nest in our office now. It's a big challenge to find out what we can do to find salt-tolerant plants, but they just don't seem to be out there. The other thing was the dumpster enclosure. It was recommended that we change from our submission of a vinyl fence to a cement block, split-face cement block structure with vinyl fence gates, and we submitted a revised drawing. I don't know if you got it yet, but we did supply those to the staff today. The other thing to mention is most of everybody who's been in this town a long time will remember this has been a gas station, service station, repair facility, oil change facility for longer than most of us have been alive. There is an absolute pristine, clean environmental on this site, which we obtained, and the seller gave us information also, and it's been clean for a number of years. As far as the traffic goes, we've had several meetings with the DOT. We had one as recently as today. Each time we meet with them, they seem to have more questions. Not too surprised about that, but we have been submitting information to them. I'm going to really defer to Nick Weatherby. He was there. If he would be so kind as to give an update on that, that would be terrific.
We had a good meeting with the DOT today. We went through a number of the challenges that the site has in terms of how the traffic would flow onto Ridge Road and off of Portland, etc. They were very open to working with the applicant and the town. As we know, if the county feels something is not going to work, they'll say it very directly, and that was not the feedback we got from them. There might be some tweaks based upon some data that they've asked the applicant for in terms of the in and out on both Ridge and Portland, but as of right now, they're still very optimistic that there's nothing that can't be worked through, but they did ask for some more information, and I know the applicant is looking to get that to the county as quickly as possible.
Yes, SRF is our traffic, has been doing the traffic study. We submitted it to them. They reviewed it. They requested some more field information on some off-peak hours, which is a new one on me, but they are going to go out this Thursday and collect the information and get it to DOT. Shortly thereafter, we can get it into a format that's acceptable to them. So hopefully by the time of the next workshop, if you want us to come back, we can give you an update then, or we can come back, to another public hearing, or both, whatever you choose. Any questions? Did I leave anything out? I don't want to take too much.
One other thing that I remember was the signage. We were very concerned, and I can't speak for the whole board, but I don't.
I am remiss in introducing Mr. Mark Donahoe, who is a representative of Dunkin' Brands, which is the franchisor for Dunkin' Donuts. He is here with me tonight, as I promised. I don't really like talking about signs. It's not my business. I'm a builder and a landlord, but I'll have him come up, but if you have any questions for me before that, I'd be happy to talk them through with you.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Romeo before we talk about the signs that we don't like?
You don't have a biased
I don't
opinion.
want to bias the,
You don't have a biased opinion, no.
One of the,
we made it clear at the workshop that there were some signs that we were concerned about, so.
And we
this isn't
certainly
anything-
want to talk to you about that.
This isn't anything new.
one of the items that did come up for discussion was parking.
Yes.
You're going to reduce it to 15,
No, the required is
17,
17, and we're proposing 12.
12, a reduction of 5. We talked about employee parking, and you said employee parking would be negligible.
That's correct. I made that statement.
How many people does it take to run a Dunkin' Donuts
I'm going to let
of this size?
I'm going to let the people from Dunkin' Donuts answer that.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not passing the buck, but I want an expert to tell you about that.
I took a ride at your suggestion to Dewey,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that was a building of comparable size.
Pretty close. Maybe a hair bigger, but the land area and the parking is about the same.
The configuration is the same, but that's tight. I mean, I found it to be tight.
Okay.
And I guess the thing that concerns me is that when it gets filled up, and you guys fill these places up with
Geez,
lines.
I hope so.
Yeah, I know you hope so, and I hope so too for you. But it's just a tight piece of land.
Did the tightness?
Oddly enough, the entrances and exits are comparable. The building is not quite in the same spot. It's farther back at your place than it is here. This is
Yep.
up front and onto the corner.
Mhm.
When I came out from being served, when I was exiting from being served, and there was a lot of snow, that left turn at the end to get myself parallel to Dewey Avenue was a toughie.
But it didn't preclude people from going there.
No, it didn't. It didn't stop them.
It was busy when you were there?
It was not. I'm sorry to say, for you.
Okay.
But no, it wasn't busy.
Mike, I would note in Section 3, page 5, it talks about employees. It says in the morning there'll be 7, afternoon 4, and evening overnight 2, pursuant to the application.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
It's still, you can't, I'm finding it difficult to be convinced that out of 7 employees during the time of the day when you're busiest, there's only going to be 1 or 2 of them driving a car.
Okay.
Would it be feasible to pursue a parking agreement with neighbors?
I haven't found a neighbor that has been agreeable to do that.
Neighbor business.
Whether apartments to the west, there's a funeral home to the north. They haven't been agreeable to that. I have not spoke to Brugger's. I highly doubt they would let us park in their parking lot. I'm not sure Wendy's would be too agreeable, but I will take it under advisement.
That big empty corner in Home Depot there, that's their storage area of snow, is it not, typically? I don't know.
Let me get Mark up here, because I can see you don't want to talk to me, because I don't have the good answers.
I do want to talk to you.
I just don't have those good answers about how the store is run. That's why I have Mark here from Dunkin'.
Well, Mark, you can join him at the podium, and
please.
and maybe you can both answer
I'll
questions
get
at the same
myself
time.
right up here in the firing line. First of all, my name is Mark Donahoe. I'm a construction project manager with Dunkin' Brands. I live here in the Rochester, New York area. I just want to really explain my relationship in all of this. I actually work for Dunkin' Brands, which is the franchisor. The gentleman that will run this store, who is going to be the owner of the business, he's not here tonight. His name is Sam Belseam, and he is our franchisee. And Sam owns and operates a number of other stores in Rochester and Monroe County. I can speak to the overall operations of the business. I'm more construction development oriented, but I do have a good background how our stores run. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer all your questions tonight.
Okay.
So
Well, why don't we haven't actually gone around yet. There's been a few questions asked, but, Rich, do you want to start, or?
Sure, and I'll address this to either you or Mr. Romeo. Because of the current snow condition, I noticed the north property line is where you're going to have your cars stacking to enter the window for ordering. How close is the pavement going to be to the top of the retaining wall, and what's the condition of that retaining wall, since we're not able to see what it looks like?
I'm going to now.
It's my turn.
Okay, go back to.
Actually, the retaining wall is in great condition. We looked at it this summer. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't need anything.
And that is on your neighbor to the north's
That
property?
is on, yes, it is on Giltner's property.
Okay.
I don't know. Here we go. I got the architect here, too.
Great. So it looks like it's just a couple feet away. Is there been any sort of engineering review of the strength and quality of the retaining wall and concern about the amount of traffic that's going to be going right over the top of that retainer wall within 3 feet?
There has not been a formal study done, no.
Okay. The next question I had, and I will admit that on first review, I was very concerned about the traffic and getting in and out of that property. I've actually driven in and out of the property several times in the last 10 days, and it was surprisingly more easy than I thought it would be. Now, granted, we weren't dealing with all the traffic that hopefully you're going to have at Dunkin' Donuts, but as far as getting back out onto the roads, my biggest concern is it looks like the majority of, I shouldn't say, a lot of your business is going to come from people in the morning, starting to the north at their homes and heading south into work, and they're going to be coming down Portland Avenue and taking a right to go in to order. And it looks to me like you can only stack 3, maybe 4 cars coming off of Portland before they get to that window to place their order. And my experience at Dunkin' Donuts is that 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, you've got a lot more than 3 or 4 people waiting to order at a lot of Dunkin' Donuts. So how are you going to deal with traffic backing up onto Portland in the morning?
Right. Well, if you look at the site plan, perhaps the place to start with is that between the menu board where you place your order and the drive-through window where you receive your order, that's 5 vehicles, and that's a standard within Dunkin' Brands.
Right.
And we have done a lot of studies on the functionality of that area, and we feel that if that area is working properly, we can get someone through that cycle in about 150 seconds, 2.5 minutes. That's our target. If that is working per its standards, then that will help keep that stack before the menu board to a minimum. You're correct, it's going to fit about 3 or 4 cars in there. But our goal is that if the process works for that drive-through menu board, drive-through order taking, and the delivery of the product, that will relieve the stress on any traffic backing up onto Portland. Now, I can go into the processes within the store of how all that works. We put a lot of work into that, studies and all of that. But obviously, as those of us who are the owners, we do not want to see traffic backing out into Portland for a number of reasons. First of all, the safety and the welfare of the people driving the roads, but also if we have traffic backing out to the road, people are not going to wait, and they'll move on to another Dunkin' or to a competition. So obviously, the workings of the drive-through are very critical, and it's something that myself and Frank and Chris, the engineer, have talked about before we even got here today.
Well, and I agree. I think it's very important to your business that you not have that happening, and that's an incentive to make sure that you have adequate staffing and have your procedures down. But at the same time, I can say, I've numerous times at the Dunkin' Donuts on Hudson Avenue, they all come from, in this case, would be passing the front of your building, and that on occasion stacks up out into the access road into the plaza. And on occasion, I've actually seen people waiting to come off of Hudson. And it creates issues for the cars that are in the parking lot trying to back in and out. And I just think that the majority of your customers in that morning rush hour are going to come from the residences to the north, and you're going to have most of your cars coming in off of Portland rather than off of Ridge Road. So I foresee it being a real issue, but with the understanding that it's beneficial to the owner to be sure that it solves itself. So that's one of my concerns. The other concern I have is also snow storage. It's going to be a nightmare on this property, and you're going to wind up either hauling snow away on a nearly daily basis if you have a winter like this. There's very, very little space to store snow anywhere on the borders of the property. And any snow that's going to get stored on the borders of the property is going to wind up creating sightline issues for people coming in and out of your business. So I would suggest that if we approve I don't know if we can do it, but some sort of condition on snow removal, because this is going to be a nightmare. And the last thing, as far as signage goes, I would be curious, the LED Dunkin' Donuts cups that are approximately 14 feet in height that are going to be on two sides of the building, is that a new Dunkin' Donuts building requirement, or is that something that's required by the franchisor?
Well, our commitment is to place signs on the building that meet code. I believe that we are asking for the variance for the pylon sign. So,
We're over.
okay.
We're over.
I'm going to do my homework on that one.
That's all right.
I'll tell you what it is.
The pylon sign is too close to the road.
That one I'm aware of, yes.
Right here. So we are,
I guess my point that I want to make is I have no problem with you having signage that's necessary to draw people to your business and make them aware it's a Dunkin' Donuts so they can seek out your brand. I just don't know where those large LED cups
we're here. We're
that are
okay.
going to be on the front and side of the building, on the east and west elevations, I don't see how that adds.
Oh, okay.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
No, we
Yeah,
are.
on the
I'm
building,
sorry.
we're okay.
The signage that's allowed, the way we calculated it, was 350 square feet on this building. And we're proposing 268 square feet of building signage. So we're under, a little less than 100 feet.
And the LED Dunkin' Donuts cup signs, those are included in those
Yeah, if you take a
calculations?
look at tab 3, page 4, there's a summary of the signs, and the cup stencil is on the east and on the west side of the building. And on we've calculated them all together. I can figure them out, not right this second, but I could figure them out. The cup stencil, the logo, all of that is 96.11 and 112.32. So we're in good shape with that.
There's a breakdown of it in the.
Yeah, it's under tab 3, page 4.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's under that.
So it meets code, but my question would be, is that something that corporate feels is necessary, or is that something that could be dispensed with?
The amount of signage?
No, the LED cups that are on the building.
Oh, Oh, the issue is with the cup itself, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that is part of our branding. We look at this as part of our identity, and in all of our different sign packages, may be dimensioned differently or laid out differently, but the word Dunkin' Donuts with the cup would be critical. So that kind of grows and shrinks as code allows.
Right, which you have on both the east and west elevation, above the window and above the walk-in doors. I'm talking about the large cup to the right of each of those.
Oh, right here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That is actually a stencil. It's like a three-dimensional sign. It's actually pin-mounted on the side of the building, is externally illuminated. That part of your,
It's part of our calculation.
okay.
But the cutout says LED lighting detail.
Is it backlit or
It's not internally illuminated, however, there is a small light that it provides external illumination, which it is LED.
So is that a downlight on the top then?
Right, it's tucked up in the swirl here, there is a small, like a gooseneck, very small one. that illuminates
So it's just on the curly Q at the top, it's not the entire cup then?
that. Correct, now that is, it's actually like a stencil that is like pin mounted to the side of the building, and then there's a small light that will illuminate it. These signs are all internally illuminated, and the lighting within them is LED.
So the majority of the cup is, on the right-hand side of the door, is just a stencil, and then it's just the curly Q at the top that has LED lighting, is that correct?
The up in the curly Q, there's actually a small gooseneck fixture which comes down and shines down and illuminates the stencil.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's all I have, thank you.
Ray, you want to go next, please?
Yes, thank you. Frank, a couple questions for you. Mr. Romeo, excuse me. I'm looking at the description of the project.
Okay.
And I'm seeing approximately the land area is .27 acres. The frontage is approximately 104 plus or minus. The frontage along Portland Avenue is 117 plus or minus. The building is 1,572 square feet, and you'll have 148.5 exterior cooler freezer.
Correct.
When I go to S6, if you will, and I add up 8 by 8 by 11 and 7 by 12, your pacemaker, Mike?
It's my pacemaker.
I'm looking at 172 square feet.
What are you adding up on S6?
I'm looking at an 8 by 11 and a 7 by 12, walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer on, it's 3, page 2.
No, I see it.
You're saying 148 and a half square feet. And I guess what I'm looking at is, could we tighten up some of these approximations a little bit more to have a better idea
Absolutely.
as to what we're really looking at?
Absolutely.
There's a typo there because they're going to be the same depth.
So what do you think this is?
Probably, I would say 11. 7 by 11 and 8 by 11.
Okay, so we got typo on both parts. We got typo from Dunkin'
Tighten
Donuts.
the whole thing up. What
We can
really
tighten that
is-
up.
What are we really dealing with?
I will straighten that out for you.
As Mr. Palukas mentioned, the snow removal, something that came up in our workshop, and let me see if I can find this. You say somewhere in this document that snow removal as necessary. What's necessary? Is it 2 inches? Is it 1 inch? Is it 6 inches? What becomes necessary to remove snow from the site? Could we come to a conclusion as to what that number might be? How many inches? How many parking spaces we might lose based on snow removal?
I think that's something we'll have to talk about with you. You'll have to come up with something. I mean, as far as we're concerned, if you lose one parking spot, you got to take that snow out of there. And they're doing it at other stores.
And I just want to...
Not only at Dunkin' Donuts, but we're doing it at multiple retail establishments this time of year.
As I say, it's just
Yeah.
arbitrary. I'd like to define that a little bit more, especially given the tightness of that area.
I understand.
You know, completely. We're looking at a wide variety of zoning issues. I'm looking at the front setback. You're saying that the zoning code requires a minimum front setback for C business district of 60 feet.
I believe
And
so.
according to 23530, I'm seeing 80 feet. And that should probably be another variance you might want to look into.
I will look into that.
Or at least, you know,
What was that section, Ray?
23530. As it relates to drive-through, I asked this question at our workshop. You're here as a franchise coordinator, I guess, as it is, Mark?
Yes.
Give me an idea. I keep asking this. I've asked this for when I deal with the Persico people, McDonald's, et cetera, dealing in that business. Help me understand the amount of drive-through businesses opposed to the amount of sit-down business. And let's not discuss that common thing about police. But tell me what the percentage is, and can you give me an idea what time of day?
Okay. Real quick question for Frank, though. Is Sam proposing this to be 24 hours? Or is it- Okay. So this store is going to be open for 24 hours. Our heaviest hour, day parts, are typically from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning, obviously. And generally, depending upon the location, sometime in that between 6 and 10, there's an hour that is the heaviest. Let's say 7 to 8. Generally, that whole block is very heavy, and then within that time period, there may be a heavier times. On average, we estimate that 60% of our business goes through the drive-through. That also depends upon location, relative to what else is going on around there, competition and everything. But a general rule of thumb is 60% of our sales are generated through the drive-through. So when myself and Frank and Sam sat down with this site, we went through a lot of versions to try to come up with a plan, both site plan and interior plan, that met all of the prerequisites. We wanted to have a site that could satisfy our drive-through requirements, but protected the welfare of the traveling citizens. We wanted to have a dining room that would be able to service people who would be coming in and want to enjoy the dining room experience, and then those people have to be able to park along with our employees. So we had a lot of different versions. We had some screaming, we had some yelling, but we arrived at these plans, and then we've been working with professionals within the company that I work for, Dunkin' Brands, and then also the expertise of Chris, the architect. And it's kind of like whenever you try to satisfy our concerns about the drive-through, you left out the dining room guests. And then so when we wanted to go hard on parking and satisfying the dining room, then we lost our drive-through requirements. So this is the plan that we came up with that we feel best satisfies all those concerns.
Question, Mark, again, let me go back to common concerns amongst the board. You're showing 2 employee parking spots. We're going to have 7 people perhaps at peak time working within the facility.
Correct.
I struggle with the thought process that we only need 2 employee parking
Yeah.
spots. I also believe that other people are going to take the patron's spot. Whatever we call the patron, whatever we call the employee.
Yes, yeah.
My question then becomes Dunkin' Brands, and I know this has been discussed, believe me when I tell you, with Burger King, with Persico, et cetera, when we're in a tight area, confined space and so forth, has Dunkin' Brands considered solely a drive-through in the elimination of the dining room? And if so, then what is the percentage of business and throughput, et cetera?
Well, I guess to answer your first question is we are actively pursuing various ways of finding places for our employees to park or ways to get them to this location. We have been discussing this with neighboring property owners. So far, we haven't been successful. Although, I don't know how hard we've been trying because obviously we don't have the site approved yet also. There is the potential that employees who generally work the same shifts could maybe find a common area to park, maybe another Dunkin' location, and then carpool to this location. And then there's also the opportunity that some people might be working coming on the bus. So we're on a bus route. That's a challenge that we're working on right now, because obviously we don't want to take up all our parking spots with our employees. And obviously where they do park, it's going to have to be a very set number and very specific, maybe for like the manager or something like that who has to go to the bank or something like that. But as far as like a drive-through only location, or was that your second half of your question?
Curious as to
Yes.
how that, given the space and the site.
Yes. I tell you, at the beginning of the process, did look at a drive-through location, but we really felt that we would be not providing, what's the best way for me to say this? We're here to provide a service to the people of the community. And yes, there are people who are going through our drive-through for the convenience and not getting out of the car because they want to get to work or whatever. But there's also another segment of our guests who enjoy that dining room experience. Some of the same people that go through our drive-through in the morning are coming back in the afternoon and they sit down. They open up their laptop, they unwind maybe before they go home for the wife or the kids. That's what I do. And so we want to be able to provide that for both segments of our guests. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not. So
Actually, it isn't.
Okay.
Ray, can you wrap it up quick soon? You've been at about 10 minutes now.
Yeah, and I apologize because sometimes
Is it
I
okay
get a
if I
little
ask some
long-winded.
questions and get some answers, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman? Because I am
You
concerned.
you could, for maybe
Thank
5
you.
more minutes if you
Okay.
wouldn't mind.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, sir, we did look at a drive-through only concept, but we felt that this location needed to have a dining room to satisfy basically the needs of our guests.
Okay, and the last thing is deliveries. I'm
Deliveries.
concerned about deliveries as that truck comes into the parking lot. How are these front parking spaces going to get in and out? Are you going to say when are deliveries coming, et cetera?
Right. We get a twice a week delivery. Deliveries generally take between a half an hour and an hour. We can, within reason, schedule deliveries, and they can be scheduled at more or less peak hours. And right now, deliveries are Sundays and Wednesdays. And this was something we actually discussed with the DOT this morning, was deliveries.
That never happened, and I lived around a corner from the Grease location that it was recommended that we look at. That never happened. During peak times, the delivery truck was always in the parking lot.
Really?
Now, whether that was scheduled that way or it wasn't scheduled, I don't know, but it became an immense it was immensely difficult to traverse that property.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that location. There's similarities between the Dewey Ave store and this store. Deliveries will have to be carefully coordinated at this location, as well as they should be at that location.
And they
too.
can't be on Portland or Ridge.
They can't park in the
Because
right of
in
way.
Greece, they were always on Britain Road, is where the deliveries were made from if there was an issue. So here, we have to be much more considerate, so that's the question I ask.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Was that 5 minutes enough, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Ray. Michael, do you have a few?
I have a couple of questions. When you, in the ingress and egress on Ridge Road, would you be amenable to eliminating the no left turn is what I'd like to have? I mean, you're really not a big distance away from Ridge Road. That lane that I would be turning into is typically the left lane. The 3 or 4 times that I've gone through the Valvoline to get my coffee the last week, I couldn't pull out because that lane was full. So I'd have to stay there or make it right.
I think we got to wait for a final determination from Monroe County DOT before we.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And they raised that, but they also said that in instances like this, what they'll often do is have the applicant sign an agreement that if it ever does become an issue, that they will then address it.
Fair enough.
But the county is obviously, that's something they've raised and will be addressed when they get the data back.
Even if we were to offer that today, the county wasn't ready to take that because of some additional counts they wanted.
Yeah. And they even said they weren't sure that it was necessary. The same thing with the queuing from the order board. That was another
Right.
thing that came up, and that was something they wanted addressed through the rest of the information. So those are questions we'll have answers to.
And as long as, if you don't mind, I just go back, as far as my issue regarding the retaining wall, is that something we could ask Labella to just, I mean, I may be completely wrong. I can't see the retaining wall. I don't know anything about what it's made up of, and is that something we could ask Labella's
Definitely
opinion?
work with the applicant's engineer to get a study done on the.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I think
I'm
it's a
curious
reasonable question,
how
absolutely.
close it is to that
Yeah.
retaining wall.
Snow removal. Mr. Romeo, you stated that was a matter of fact, that this store would be a snow removal store.
That's correct.
Ray, would that satisfy you? That this will be a snow removal store?
Under what, in the plan that we've been given, as necessary? I just want that clarified. What does it mean? All snow is going to be removed from the site?
Right, so I think the
I'm just
question
asking
relates
for-
to the threshold of
Yeah,
when the
I'm
snow
just
is going to
asking
be
for
removed.
clarification, Mike.
I think what we need to do, we can put something in there about that says that you can't lose any parking places. So if you lose you need to remove snow before it
Well,
gets to the point where.
It's more than just the parking spaces, because if they don't put the landscaping in, I can see it's just a natural place to put some snow where the grass is going to grow. But that would be a line of sight pulling out. Something to think about.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, Mary?
Well, everybody's pretty much covered what I was going to cover. I too wonder about the snow removal. And I think that a company as big as yours, I'd want to make sure that snow wasn't around so that people can get in and out safely.
I know we need to set a threshold, but obviously, we're going to, there's parameters, first of all, for going out and plowing. I mean, that's pretty standard in any contract. And then I think it's just this, the attorney said we need to set a threshold for when it needs to be actually physically taken off the site. I think Frank's got the toys to do it, but obviously we can't lose any parking or have safety issues on this site.
Yeah, because it's your business that's going to
Sure, yeah.
be hurt, not us.
Well, actually, that's not completely true, because if the snow gets pushed through the parking areas, through the parking spots, so they can clear their parking spots, now it goes out into the area where we've got plantings, and it goes out onto the sidewalk, which then becomes an issue for the town to get the sidewalk clear, and they got no place to put the snow. So it does affect everybody around there.
That's all I have.
Bernie?
Sure, and I apologize. Is it Mr. Donahoe or Donahue?
Donahoe,
Donahoe.
yes.
So, Mr. Donahoe, we're talking about the curb cut, and maybe this is more a question for you. Is that curb cut the same as what it is today, or are you changing it?
Which one?
The one on Ridge Road East?
Well, that's what we're talking about. That's what DOT, we're waiting for them to tell us what they want to do.
No, but I mean, is your plans exactly the same as what it is today, or is
Yes,
it different?
yes,
It's
on
exactly
Ridge
the same.
Road.
So, and I was wondering, maybe this is a question for Nick, that property has had a lot of different businesses. Is there any record of the amount of accidents because somebody was trying to make a left-hand turn?
That's something, the county definitely keeps those numbers, and I think that plays into the questions they were asking today. So to say that I have that number here, I don't, but we can certainly ask county DOT.
That'd be great, because I think it kind of forces a right-hand turn unless you can make a left-hand turn, but I'm just curious if it's been a problem or not. The second question I have is, Mr. Donahoe, you said it was a 5-car standard for the queuing.
Yes, between where they order the menu board and the window, it's a total of 5 cars are in that area.
Okay, so is that a 5-car standard minimum or a maximum?
That is the standard.
Standard period.
We have locations that have less, and we have locations that have more, but in order to work as efficiently as possible, which is critical for this location, it needs to be 5. Basically, to prepare your order, it takes that period of time on average with other people in line to have it ready for you when you get there to the window.
Thank you. And then, as a franchisor, is a pylon sign a requirement?
No.
Okay. And you addressed the employee parking, so I don't want to belabor that, but I think just asking the adjoining properties is not aggressive, and I think the board would probably appreciate it, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I would appreciate it if I know you've checked with all of those properties. And I don't know if there's insurance reasons why you can't be so far or something like that. I really don't know. But that's just a comment.
Right, yeah.
I think we could be more aggressive in checking that because it's limited parking.
Without talking to Frank and Sam, I don't know how far they have reached out to people, but
They just done the adjoining properties unless I misunderstood what I heard.
No, I talked to the immediate adjoining properties, and they weren't interested in that, but we have not spoke to Home Depot.
And then, Mr. Donahoe, I'm just going to ask you, you want this to be successful, otherwise you wouldn't promote it. How do you feel about this site and the tightness? I mean, do you feel this is going to be a successful site if it's built?
to answer your question, yes. And let me just provide you a little bit of background.
Mr. Donahoe,
Is-
could you speak in the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Dunkin' Brands, a couple years ago, aggressively started to look at growing in this area. And we did some studies, and we identified areas that we felt could use another Dunkin' without affecting neighboring stores. And this location is almost in the bullseye of one of our areas that we determined needed a store. And we don't build stores just because we see an open piece of property, because we're very concerned about the profitability of our franchisees, because they are our lifeline as a franchisor. So I feel comfortable about this location. I understand it's a very challenging location. A couple things I'm just going to throw out is that we don't take this site selection and supporting a franchisee lightly. We want to be in a location where we feel we're going to be successful. It's a long-term investment. We're not going to fold up and go away in 3 or 5 years. This gentleman who's the franchisee, he's signing a 20-year commitment to stay at that location. So it's a big commitment on him on a number of areas, both length of service and in money. And then also, we're not willing to make that kind of commitment unless we feel that we have a successful relationship. So the site selection is critical. And, and as we've said before, we don't want to go into a location that is going to be fraught with a lot of difficulties and issues over the life of that 20 years because it just makes our life miserable. Simple as that.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
I just have a couple quick questions as well. You gave us a couple of new drawings today, Frank, about the, if I look at the drawing S 2.1, it shows the turning pattern for the garbage truck and then also the turning pattern for the tractor trailer. With respect to the turning pattern for the garbage truck has to pick up, does that pick up the dumpster?
Yes.
So in the pattern that's shown, how does it pick up the dumpster in that pattern? Because isn't the dumpster to the west of?
Well, it certainly didn't print out the way it was supposed to print out, but, they got to pull in straight from Portland and then back up and then pull out through Ridge Road.
Oh, that's not what I.
Yeah, I know, it's.
I didn't garner that at all from that drawing, and I don't see where it backs up and everything else.
Well, it didn't print out the way it was supposed to print out, but we'll get you another clear copy before the next meeting.
All right. And then the tractor trailer that comes in, does that actually, I can't tell from that what that does either, because it looks like it hits the building, then it bounces off, and then it goes over the retaining wall a little bit, so I'm a little concerned about.
Well, we certainly wouldn't want that to happen more than once.
So, yeah.
But we'll get you a larger scale for that. I
appreciate that.
I think a lot of that is going to be predicated on what happens with DOT in these curb cuts. That's going to change a little bit, but we'll get that to you.
I guess the only other one that was, it's been mentioned a couple times. I'm concerned about the pylon sign as well with the other signage around there. We've got some precedent about that we've said no to pylon signs before, so I'd like that, personally, I like that one. I can't speak for the whole board, but I would be happier if that wasn't part of your signage plan, especially only being 3 feet from the road. And that's, because I wanted others to be brief, I'll stop at that point, because we're gonna have at least one more workshop and one more meeting like this, so. I'd like to open it up to public input now, open the public hearing. And as I said, the public hearing is going to stay open now until.
Can I just clarify two things as a follow-up to Mr. McDonald's questions?
Sure.
There was two issues you had. One was on the cooler size. It looks to be that there's a typo, but the math as we presented it does match the plans. So it does, if you calculate it out, what we're potentially going to argue about is 7 square feet. So I will get with Duncan and see what's right, what's wrong on that.
Just want to have
the letter of intent matches what's printed out. It may not look right, but we'll do that. And as far as the setbacks go, we will verify this, but I think what you're talking about with the 80-foot setback has to do with the average of the setbacks of the adjacent buildings on the adjacent properties.
And I'd like some clarification on that as well.
And we will give that to you.
That's all I'm asking for.
Okay, no, I just wanted to expand on it a little bit, so we understand what it was. That we took a position, we think it's correct at 60 feet, and we will answer your question, and if it's wrong, it's another variance, but I don't believe it is.
That's fair.
Okay?
Thank you.
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open up the public input now. A public hearing is open. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to talk on this application, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Board, my name is Bob Spatola, 143 Dake Avenue, here in Arundecoit. Boy, you all really did come up with a lot of, I thought, good questions. I don't even know anything about the site except for driving by it pretty frequently. I'm just certainly at a disadvantage at not being able to listen to a presentation without being able to look at a plan. So sitting out over here and listening to the presentation, which was great, but then also your questions, it's pretty difficult for anybody on that side not to really have a visual, because there wasn't anything up here to explain, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, I don't really know much about the site plan, but I just want to make some comments. First of all, I'm very happy to know that you seem to be very insistent upon the snow removal. I know there was a comment made about there's levels of decision-making for removal of snow. When you sign a contract, that's normally what happens, 3 inches, 4 inches, and they come out and they take it out. Again, I didn't get the opportunity to come over to the town and really to take a look at the plan. But being familiar with that site as well as the Hudson Avenue site, I'm not sure that there's going to be, as Mr. Donahue had mentioned, he's looking for them to have that inside experience. I'm not sure if I'm inside and I come out and there's that tractor trailer there and I can't get my car out of the limited spots that are there, that it would have turned out to be a good experience for me. So I want to talk about that. That I really do think it ties in with snow and snow removal. I almost feel as though, and I know the board is in the position to do that, that you insist upon a measure or a mark and a decided mark that will in fact force the owner of the property to remove snow. Somebody mentioned about the snow being pushed out into the grassed area, which would then be going into the sidewalk, the right-of-ways. And I know that the town has been out removing snow from sidewalks and blowing it back up onto the properties or the private properties, not into the roadway. So I really think, from my standpoint, snow removal and a flow of traffic within that property is critical. Mr. Plukas mentioned something as well. I am familiar with, the corner lot, I go by there often, and I do know, I didn't know that the drive was going to be so close to that steep slope or the retained wall that's there. So I'm happy to know that there'll be a study of that to make sure, because of that loaded added traffic or weight. Aside from that, I think due diligence is, and you are doing it, I'm not questioning that at all, but I am really surprised that the County of Monroe hasn't really brought any flags with this, because I think, and again, I don't know where if the driveway coming off of Portland is changing or staying the same. If it's staying the same, because I can't think it can go any further north, I think the best you could queue there at that light would be 3 cars. And now you're sitting at the driveway. So I'm really surprised that the county hasn't raised a flag. But then again, what do I know? And I'm also surprised that they didn't say, without a doubt, there can't be a left-hand turn coming out on a Ridge Road. Just because that sits at the light, and that's got to be queued at 2. Again, I don't know. I didn't get out there. I didn't measure it. I don't know what the traffic studies are. I really don't. But I go through there all the time. I just hope that the right decision is made. I know that the companies are attempting to make money and to make this the right thing for our town. But I am concerned, although could be a 20-year contract signed, if this isn't successful, that doesn't say he doesn't have to close. He will close, but he's still committed to that lease. So just because a contract for 20 years is signed doesn't mean that's going to stay open. So aside from that, I do look forward to the next public hearing. And thank you, by the way, for allowing me to listen in on the workshop.
I'd like to clarify a few things.
Yes. Well, I want to clarify one thing. We let you do more than listen into at the workshop, Bob.
I believe I said, and I'll say it again, just so I didn't know if we could hear it in the back, that the County of Monroe did raise some questions about left turns and queuing on Portland. And that's why we'll have the more information from the applicant. I want to point out a couple other things, too. This was a great discussion. And that's why you have a process, and I hope we keep an open mind, because at the end of the day, it's a commercially zoned piece of property that comes with its own challenges. It's whatever comes in, if this doesn't work, we'll be faced with the same questions on another project because it's probably a very similar use. So I think it'd be prudent from our perspective to continue to have this great dialogue because it wasn't a lot of excellent questions and back and forth. And we see what comes back from the county and we see what the applicant can address in terms of your concerns. Because at the end of the day, we want to see Ridge Road be vibrant, right? We want traffic to be bountiful on Ridge Road. It shouldn't be dangerous or unsafe, but at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. We need to develop that corridor. That's what we have. So I think this was a lot of great questions, a lot of great answers. There's still a lot of work to do, but I just wanted to point out that it's a commercially zoned piece of property. At the end of the day, we have to develop those the best we can, and if we don't do it here, we'll be faced with the same questions again. So to the extent we can answer these challenges now, we might as well do it for this application as opposed to waiting and just saying, no, it's too hard, we can't figure it out. So that's what we have from our perspective here.
You know, you bring up a really, several people have brought up this point too, but if you look at the math, the property is 116 feet deep. You need to have, by code, 60 feet in the front and 60 feet in the back, so that's 120. So you actually have minus 4 feet to build anything to code on this particular piece of property. So
That's correct.
So that's the challenge. So just, defy I think it's the second law of thermodynamics or one of them and build something in negative spot and then we'll do it. But that's one of the problems that we have with this. I think the other thing though, and I think several people have brought this up too, is that, and maybe not exactly like this, but you look to have you said like the experience inside the place, and one of the reasons that the property or the building is the size that it is because you want to have a certain number of seats inside. I don't know, I've looked around at some of the different spots that you have, but one of the things that's unique about Ridge Road is that there's probably more diners and places to have coffee and the like on in that stretch of road in that area than just about any place in Monroe County. And in places like New England, I realize that every two blocks there's a Dunkin' Donuts and then there's another Dunkin' Donuts. But it's like that, only it's more dense. The number of diners and Starbucks and some of the other competition you have, including right across the street, right around the corner right there, and there's just a lot of places right now where people can sit down. And the concern that we have, I think, one of the concerns the planning board has, because we discussed it some at the workshop, is that because that people have lots of choices to sit down and enjoy coffee or sit down and enjoy those type of things that you serve at Dunkin' Donuts, that if the traffic doesn't allow you to go in there, then you're not going to be successful. So if you already know that there's a lot of places and there's a lot of different choices, why don't you make the site more amenable to, less spots, but, more of a throughput for, as you said, the drive-through. So I know that you've already gone through and you've got a business plan and you got to go by what you have, but the concern that we have is that this may be in that area of Ridge Road is sort of unique in that aspect. So, okay. So we're not going to table this. We're going to leave it open. Because the application isn't complete, we don't have anything like a 61-day window or whatever the
Yeah, the public
timeline
hearing's
is.
going to stay open, so
Public
the
hearing's
time
going to stay
periods are
open, so
triggered
we're just going to stop now
until the next meeting.
until the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
All right. We have 3 other pieces of business tonight. We have 2 items, 2 referrals from the town board, and they're looking for us to give positive referral to what they put forth. You want to read the next one, please, Michelle?
It's an item for board action, town board referral, on the matter of amending section 235-36A to include jewelry and coin exchange dealers, pawnbrokers, and secondhand dealers.
Nick, do you want to?
Sure. Back in the fall, when Chief Tantillo and the police department came to the development department and we looked at some of the new pawn code that was being written in the county, we felt that it wasn't thorough enough. So the town embarked to strengthen the code as it relates to pawnbrokers, secondhand dealers, jewelries, and coin exchange. What this does, this local law, will clarify so it's very clear where they're allowed. They've only been allowed in manufacturing in the past. That's in terms of pawnbrokers. When we passed the new law, we put all of them together. This will make sure that all of those locations, any future location that tries to cite one of these businesses in the town, will only be allowed in the manufacturing district.
Okay, so if there are existing spots that are in non-manufacturing districts, are they grandfathered in, or?
Yes, there could be a pre-existing use, and when that does change, so say you had one that went from being a pawnbroker or secondhand dealer and then changed to being a shoe repair, that use ends. With that property could no longer be used because it would no longer be zoned that way. This to make sure this limits them.
It can change hands as long, it can change owners as long as it.
The use, yes.
If it changes owners, then the use can stay as long as it doesn't revert from something that, from a coin exchange place or whatever to something else.
That's correct.
Then it just can't go back.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
That's the way it's been administered in the town. This just makes sure that there is no ambiguity about where these can be located.
Okay.
So could I ask one quick question? So and I know you're doing this to make sure it's clear. It says jewelry and coin exchange dealers.
Mhm.
What if it's just a coin exchange dealer, or what if it's only a jewelry store?
Well, in terms of the law, when you look at it, the way that someone is classified on that law, it's the type of business you do and how much of it in terms of, and I could certainly have Sergeant Bean better explain how they quantify how the amount of business they do and the amount of time they have to hold on to a piece of jewelry or property if they're going to resell it.
I don't think that's what Bernie's question is.
I guess, are there separate definitions under the code for jewelry exchange dealers and coin exchange dealers, or is it just one definition for jewelry
No, they're
and
separate.
coin?
No,
So it would
to answer
include
your
all
question,
of
no, it's
them?
true. That's just the way it's written, jewelry and coin exchange
So I
dealers.
mean, I read a lot of contracts, but I would say
Sure.
if I read this, a coin exchange dealer would be allowed because it's not jewelry.
No,
You just didn't say exchange twice. That's, I think, is what you're saying, Nick. Instead of saying
Yeah,
jewelry
I mean, you
exchange,
can-
coin exchange, they're saying jewelry and coin.
The only reason I bring it up is because I know this is for clarity.
Sure.
And to me, that's leaving it open to a different
sure,
discussion.
absolutely. That's certainly something we can look at, the changing the heading of the local law, but what the law says is, I think, pretty clear, but we can certainly look
I'll
at it.
defer to the experts that do this for a living, so.
Yeah, so in section 24, you could just, I think maybe the suggestion would be to change it to jewelry exchange dealers, coin exchange dealers, and then go on, pawnbrokers and secondhand
Okay.
dealers.
We can certainly look at that.
Okay. Mary, do you have any questions?
No.
Michael? Ray?
No.
Rich?
No.
I'm all set.
Depends, Charlie.
So, what the town is looking for is either a positive or negative referral. Obviously, they don't want a negative one. So I would entertain a motion for this, to give the town board a positive referral on this item.
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman, and with the codicil, as Mr. Bellacci mentioned, that we delineate or designate, whichever word you want to use.
I'll use both.
Exchange as well as coin exchange. Clarify that.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Blocky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next one, Michelle?
Also, another town board referral on the matter of a text amendment to clarify the definition of a single-family dwelling.
Nick, would you like to give some explanation about this one as well?
And Ashley, correct me where I'm wrong. So over the course of the past 6 months or so here, when we've been looking at how the single-family code reads. It's been made clear to us that there's certainly some lack of clarity in terms of what is been considered a approved use in R1. This would make sure that in R1, it stays R1 in the way that I think we all think of it, as a single-family dwelling that is like we see in all of the neighborhoods around here. It's not a duplex, it's not an apartment, it's a single-family. In terms of the last code, it was called single-family detached, but it's the traditional single-family home that I think we were all thought the R1 code permitted, and only that. So this makes that very clear. And Ashley, you want to?
Right, so in all of the zoning districts, R1, 2, 3, and so on, where single-family dwellings were permitted under the current definitions of the code, single-family dwelling is broken into two categories, single-family attached and single-family detached. So actually, within the general single-family dwelling definition, that could include duplexes. So the way that the code is written right now, even in R1, 2, and 3 districts where it says single-family dwellings are permitted, if you're really just following the language of the code, you could have a duplex without getting any additional approval. So the purpose of this local law is to amend the definition of single-family dwelling throughout the code and all of the other relevant provisions to make it clear that single-family dwellings are what we think of the traditional single-family detached one-family dwelling, and everything else will fall within multiple dwellings or townhouses that are permitted in R4, 5, 6, and above under special circumstances.
That's certainly how the code's been administered over the years, but it's certainly read differently if you really parse the code out. And in order so that we don't have any misconceptions about what is permitted in R1, this will help clarify that for the future.
Okay. Rich, do you have any questions about this?
I would just ask our council, to what effect would making this change have on any pending applications that are before the zoning board?
So, like with any code change, if there is a change in the code before an application is actually approved and a building permit has been pulled and substantial construction has been commenced, any pending application would have to come into conformance with any change in the code. So if there were a pending application and this code were changed before that application were fully processed and the building permit was issued, then the application would have to be modified in whatever respects were required to conform to what approvals would be necessary under the new local law.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in contrast to, following up on Jay's question on the last one, if there is an existing, if there's an existing dwelling that would otherwise be permitted under the prior version but not the new version, that wouldn't be affected. It would be a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. But for anything that's just pending, it would have to come into conformance with the new local law.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Ray?
Nick, I think this is great. I think what has been done here is nothing more than a technical correction that someone was trying to take advantage of. We've spoken about this before. We spoke about it at workshops. I can't even begin to imagine having an apartment complex or an apartment on my property or near my property in an R1. And I can't imagine the cumulative effect to our infrastructure, drainage, roadways, sewers, etc. I think this is the best clarification we could have. And it sets everybody straight, and I think it's great, personally.
Okay, great. Michael?
I'm comfortable. I like it.
Mary?
I think it's very good.
I think it's very good, too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
No. You can come to the public hearing at the town board meeting.
There's no public input on
The
that.
public hearing will be at the town board meeting on
Right,
March
right.
19th.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for positive referral.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman?
I'll
Is there a se- All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have one set of meeting minutes from January 26th, 2015. All members that were, that are here tonight were also here at the January 26th meeting. I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Or are there any corrections, or?
I don't see any.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Any opposed? Have a good night.